What glamorized career path is actually a complete nightmare. Till all career paths appear to be nightmares. Farming on a large scale. I was living in debt up to my ass, $500 k $1 mil depending on the time of year. Haggling for every input, land, fertilizer, seed, equipment, at the mercy of the weather, and got to watch the commodity markets kick me in the nuts every business day. The real cherry on top was everyone thinking you are trying to kill them with GMOs and copious amounts of chemicals that we don't use. Not to mention farms are passed down through generations, so you've got a bunch of dead and living ancestors watching your every move. Oh, and a lot of farmers work a second full-time job for the health insurance. There's a reason farm suicides are high and farm accidents and accidents are higher. There's a million young rural FFA kids that would give their left leg for a chance to farm. Modeling. Too competitive and not enough food. Veterinarian. Insanely competitive schooling that crippled you with debt. With a depressing debt income ratio after graduation. Most of your patients don't like you, and most of the owners think you're getting rich upselling them unnecessary services when their dog's exploding eyeball cancer can be cured with raw organic exotic meat CBD coconut oil. But you're withholding that information because you're in bed with big kibble, high stress, stagnant wages, long hours, holiday leave, rampant depression, lost count of how many colleagues have committed suicide, sometimes tempted to join them. Chef, long hours, itty environment, nothing is ever good enough. The video game industry. Lot of kids and teens want in it so bad because I grew up playing games blah blah blah, they take me to another world blah blah blah. Then you become an adult and learn that it's all math and physics, and making a video game has nothing to do with what you experienced growing up. It's all black screens of code, polygons, and being criticized for your work. What's worse, if you make games you probably never have the time to play them anymore. The gaming industry is notorious for implementing 60-80 hours work weeks. Even worse, depending on what company you work for, you may never have stable work. You finish a project and then the company tells you we don't have another project for your particular skill set, and you gotta look for more work. And if all that wasn't bad enough, you'll probably never work on a game you want to work on. All those big, fancy games and indie darling on Steam are a very small fraction of what exists. Barbie's Horse Adventure? Those people got degrees and we're inspired by the same games as you. Crappy Candy Crush knockoffs, same degree and inspiration. Stupid tabletop games that you only see in the family section at Walmart? Those also utilize game designers programmers. Don't get into video games because you like video games. Get into video games because you're passionate about math and science. Miso is an attorney and isn't loving life right now. She says, you know how you did term papers in college? Well, I do term papers every day, all day, endlessly. I've started working in television from a too young an age. It was amazing to witness all the behind the scenes stuff. But the reality is that these days you just can't make enough money from performing on TV, let alone the deprivation of creative freedom, which is what got my show cancelled, I think. Most career paths, glamorized or not, can be a nightmare if you have a hitlord for a boss. I don't know if nightmare is the word, but my wife has finally reached her lifelong goal of becoming a zookeeper at one of the top zoos in the US. She is very happy to have the opportunity to hand food to otters, have reindeer eat out of her hand, and brush okapi. However, she took on tens of thousands of dollars in student loans and did months of unpaid work at the zoo to get the job, which is seasonal, requiring she be off 2 months a year. She gets up at 4 AM and does farmhand style physical labor for 8 hours a day for about $9 an hour with no benefits. I am thrilled that she reached her goal, and I am happy that she is happy, but I am pretty disenfranchised with the whole thing. Judging by this thread, all careers, also being unemployed, or alive. Radio announcer. Like a lot of other jobs in the entertainment industry, it's full-time work for part-time pay. Second jobs are common. Your pizza delivery guy just may be your favorite morning show host. At least, that's how the morning guy at my station made ends meet. Until he was laid off in the last round of cutbacks. Now we're a hybrid station, which is the preferred business model these days. That's a fancy way of saying one person does everything while you run a ton of syndicated programs. 12 hours days of minimum wage. Listen up kids. Any job that seems glamorized has more than likely resulted in an oversupply of people wanting to do that work, while demand has not increased, thus bringing the compensation down for that line of work. Political staffer. Most jobs in politics pay very little money and require you to work 80+ hours a week for a boss who is guaranteed to have a gigantic ego. You also have to look for a new job after every election day. Investment banking. People talk about the fancy plane rides, expensive dinners, wild parties with your colleagues or a client. The reality of it is you're never truly off work, always on call like a surgeon. Works weeks are usually 60-100 hours and can be brutal if one follows another. It's really more like working from 9 AM to 10 PM in office and then get home to work another bit and have any given presentation ready stat. I've gone all-nighters followed by client meetings where all I have time for is a quick shower and a 7/11 coffee. Architect is really bad. Most people don't complete it and the mental health issues are quite serious. There's a lot of criticism and stress in the beginning. Lots of late nights and hard work. At the end of the work you get insulted in public. There's no real reason for this. You aren't going to be saving lives or anything. There's no need to make it so expensive either. So 3 years later, you get a degree and have to do a year of intern work. Then it's time for another year of study and projects and exams. Then 2 years of minimum wage work. Then you come back for more exams, essays and projects. It's really too hard for what it is. I get paid very badly and I don't really use any of my training. It was pointless really, but girls like it at parties when I say I'm an architect. That's a lie, I don't go to parties, I have no social life. Medicine. A close friend is a doctor. He doesn't have a life. For all of you smart kids with advanced degree from top 50 colleges, don't go into consulting. You can do better. Find a line of work that is not as soul sucking and energy draining. Those frequent flyer miles and free hotels, whining and dining in glamorous suits are just a smoke screen to cover up the misery from constant traveling. Networking, guaranteed overtime and no weekends are not worth it. Many people do it as a stepping stone to a real career, which is smart. Staying in consultancy for 5+ years will likely turn your life upside down. Teaching for sure. I mean, people know it sucks, but still the idea of becoming a teacher and changing the lives of children simply by caring enough exists in a lot of people, and sadly it's just not like that. The very sad truth is it doesn't matter how much you care. There are so many people who just want to make your job near impossible and people drop out of the position left and right. All these people from your hometown who think they can become public figures on Instagram etc. Bunch of weirdos in my opinion. As someone who's going to graduate university in a year or two, what I'm getting from this thread is that employment is awful, unemployment is awful, and I should consider a career in being dead. Behavioral health. I spent a long time working towards a career in therapy, and I've noticed that a lot of new people looking to get into the field go in with the starry-eyed I want to help people mentality. I did too. You do help people, but it is ducking hard to help people. A lot of jobs are high stress low pay type of deals, because a lot of the jobs available are through non-profits that only have so much funding to go around. You are vicariously exposed to other people's trauma, and it does affect you. No matter how good you are at creating boundaries and practicing self-care, it's an admirable profession, but a grossly underappreciated one. And it most certainly isn't for everyone who wants to help people for a living. Engineer. I learned all this ducking math and still haven't driven a single train. Going through college when you don't know what you want to do. Film crew. Yes, you sometimes meet famous people. Sometimes they're cool. Often they're really not. The days are 14+ hours of work with a commute of who knows how long on either end. Depending where you're shooting, you have half an hour for lunch. Coffee breaks are whenever you're not needed on set. So depending on your job, I was in camera, and we rarely had a down moment. It could be almost never. More often than not, someone on set is yelling. People lose their minds over making really itty entertainment. You start work by 7 AM on Monday, And by Friday you're coming in at 4 PM and leaving when the sun comes up on Saturday. There are no paid holidays, no paid sick days, no paid vacation. If you don't work enough qualifying hours, the union kicks your healthcare. And this is if you're in a union. Non-union. Much worse, sexual harassment is through the roof. But the kids who get it the worst are afraid to say anything or they'll lose their jobs. I have been told some real horror stories about famous actors, some of whom I still haven't seen get outed by the Me Too movement. And I'm not talking word of mouth, second-hand stories. I'm talking about young women who whisper to each other what shows to avoid and make them swear to never use their name because if they want to work in this industry, they can't be known as a troublemaker. I watched so many co-workers fall into addictions, lose family, miss their children's lives, over the dumbest TV shows in the world. If you go union, the money can be good, but it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. I hear being a YouTuber is pretty at work. Constant pressure to conform to a mysterious algorithm that's constantly changing around you. And doing or saying something that it or the advertisers don't like means that the plug is pulled on your wages, possibly even your whole livelihood. I like all the pushes to get people into STEM fields, specifically science. They do all those demonstrations that make smoke or foam appear and make color changes. They are like, look, science is funsies. When in reality it's the most grueling, repetitive, high-stress, miserable work you can get, plus countless industries just contract out the positions so you aren't even guaranteed benefits, plus any business is first and foremost a business so you have to spend countless hours in boardroom meetings explaining science and why things won't work to people who think the disk drive on their computer is a drink holder. Veterinary medicine certified vet tech. I was a tech for 4 years and peaced out. The work is backbreaking and clinic owning vets are cheap. You are bitten, scratched, occasionally left to get a 95-pound dog off the surgery table alone. And if you work in a mixed practice, you can also get the ever-loving it kicked out of you, and these were the things I was reasonably okay with dealing with. All for a wage that's supplemental at best. Hope you got roomies or a spouse that makes a decent wage. Then you have the owners. The ones who call you nasty names because your clinic doesn't take payment plans since the last 50 people we offered them to never paid, and you have the audacity to charge an exam fee at the very least. The ones who don't train their purse dogs and then screech at you when you get bitten because Fifi is a holy terror and your patient's dying. Some you know it's coming, but you're trying valiantly to save. And some it's totally out of the blue from something like a thrown clot after surgery, or something that we don't even get to diagnose because what's the point of a necropsy for a family pet? There's a reason the suicide rates among veterinarians is so high, and a reason a lot of educated veterinary technicians, basically animal RNs, we did everything but diagnose, prescribe, make a prognosis and perform surgery, don't last very long in the profession. A lot of the problems detailed on this sub are actually due to America's toxic workaholic culture that lets companies force 50-60 hours work weeks on their employees with no paid or parental leave. I'm a professional, full-time voice actor. I'm blessed to be successful and happy, but about 99% of the voice actors I know are depressed most of the time, struggling hard to find work, wrestling with imposter syndrome, questioning if they should give up, and barely able to make rent, particularly video game animation actors. Edit. Really, this is true for most every creative freelancing career. This is just about the most depressing thread I've ever come across. Foreign Service Officer. You are paid to live in a foreign country and meet interesting people. You get to travel. You are paid tax-free allowances. You also have to defend all government policies and practices to foreigners while keeping a straight face, even the ones you disagree with or are totally inane. You have to politely and respectfully deal with foreigners you know are lying to you, trying to rip you off, corrupt, criminal, or just generally horrible. This includes foreign officials, visa applicants, business people and others. The ambassador acts like he's the king of the world and expects you to kiss ass, when in fact he's nothing special. Administrative regs mean allowances don't always cover genuine expenses. In most countries, locals think they can rip you off and charge you 10 times the price because you're a dip. Dip plates on your car are an invitation to smash and grab. Offices always look like they were fitted with cast-offs from government surplus warehouse rejects. You have a fancy title but not budget for local initiatives. So you always look like a cheapskate. You're the last to know what is going on in office practices and politics. And coming back to HQ means surprise. Everything changed while you were away. Genuine promotions few and far between, which means competition hinges on ass kissing, unrealistic job appraisals, and cutthroat competition with sociopaths. Postings seem to be assigned in order to make everybody miserable, with the good gigs going to people the posting officer wants to kiss up to. And when you come back to HQ, you realize it's even worse there. Ballet dancer. Parents spend tens of thousands, or more, on training. They give up their entire teen years and schooling. Most elite ballet dancers are homeschooled and a large percentage move away from home for training in high school. Most dancers you see on stage in a ballet are paying to be there. The bottom rungs of ballet companies are paid to play. And when you have paid to dance a few years, you might be able to get a position that pays you with a dozen pairs of pointe shoes and a stipend for performances. Then maybe you'll be promoted to the bottom level where you get paid $20k a year and have no health insurance. All while putting your body through major torture. Non-profit sector. You're mostly putting a band-aid on issues. You go into it wanting to help people, but far too many people are ungrateful, not willing to help themselves, or complain no matter how much you're trying. I cannot tell you how many people have made threats even when you've gone well above and beyond for them. So many people abuse the system for freebies. I had people come in trying to get freebies who make over 100k a year. The pay is always it unless you're at the executive level. It is ridiculous how much executives make compared to the workers doing 90% of the work. The CEO of my organization makes well into the six figures while we have to work 3 years to get a 3% raise on our low salary. They also devalue you constantly. You have people with master's degrees working entry-level positions being bossed around by some old lady with zero education but who's friends with the CFO or something. You're constantly working with a ramen noodle budget expected to come out with steak and lobster results. 9/10 volunteers are only there because they're trying to get hours or a reference and complain a lot. You're constantly battling other non-profits even if you're just trying to share resources. You can do completely different things and are just trying to refer clients back and forth so they can access all available resources. But they'll guard their clients like gold. The amount of shady practices that occur as well. Inflation of numbers. Total lies. etc. It is really sad how many places do nothing or very minimal, but are glamorized as doing good. Edit. Thanks for the love. Trades. Welder. Pipe fitter. Electrician. etc. Which Reddit loves to glamorize as an alternative to basically any other job because of the pay. I'm not in a trade but my family members are, and it is some of the most grueling and crazy work out there. They've been in dangerous situations like solar panels flying away during an arresta or lax fire safety at a nuclear power plant. They've worked crazy amounts of overtime just trying to meet impossible deadlines. My husband has been lucky, but when my dad was in the union he would get laid off and be out of work for months where he would do side work. The alternative to this is working at out of range jobs and being away from home for months at a time. They take a toll on your body. My husband will most likely need a knee replacement and my dad had to retire early due to his health. Working for yourself is all well and good if you can balance your own books, maintain your codes, licenses and are insured, all while homeowners freak out at the price for rewiring their 1930s fire trap house. I feel like Reddit tries to paint trades as these simple jobs that anyone can do with easy pay when there's a lot more that goes into it. It's not just your ability to weld, hang drywall or wire, but understanding and remembering code requirements, safely using all of your tools and keeping yourself sane while you figure out how we're going to finish all this in a week. I still think anyone should give it a try if they really want to. Just understand that it's harder work than people like to think about. I don't think my husband would do anything differently, but I know my dad actively steered me away from a trade as a kid. Being an artist. People think it's just fun drawing time in art class, but it is so stressful, especially if it's a job you do. When I get commissions I spend hours just thinking of the idea. I start sketching it. Person. Usually a non-artist. Artists are usually more gentle about it or don't mind. Says it's not how they wanted it. Redo the sketch. Hopefully it's okay now. Do the 2-hour line art. They say, oh, this is wrong. This is too big. WTF is that? etc. After spending another 1-2 hours fixing it, you color it in. There's usually no problem with that unless it's an artist with a color palette you're not used to. When you're done you send them to picture and hopefully they paid you while you were drawing, because there's a lot of people who just make excuses. Also, if you're a small artist, you probably undercharged that commission. That drawing you slaved over for 5 days. The person was only willing to $15 and you'll take anything because everyone loves to ask for free stuff. IDK if military is glamorized. But I saw a bunch of people who joined cause they wanted to be badasses and they couldn't wait to get out. Long hours. Sometimes dangerous work. Mind-numbingly repetitive tasks. Being stuck with arsehole bosses at times. Not like you can just quit. Not the best pay. etc. Add it all up and you get a large portion of people who do one enlistment and never come back. I've heard nothing but horror stories of how broken the machine really is when it comes to social work. I honestly don't know if I've ever heard anything good from social workers, and almost cringe whenever I hear about someone wanting to get into social work as a career. Prove me wrong. Academic. It's not super glamorous. But I hear people talking all the time about university professors sitting on their asses in an ivory tower. It's not like that at all. You spend years in grad school. In my field it takes 6-7 years for a PhD student even if you already have masters. If you stick it out through grad school and get the doctorate, there's a good chance that no university will hire you, even if you did good work. Sometimes your particular niche research interest is out of fashion, so you're screwed. If you are lucky enough to get a tenure-track job in your field, you're constantly balancing teaching, research, writing articles and monographs, begging for funding, networking at conferences, serving on committees, reviewing other people's books, and generally trying to justify your existence to a crumbling system of higher ed that's suffering from budget cuts. Academics usually are able to work in fairly safe environments, but not always. Field work can mean diseases, parasites, and political violence. Lab work can mean back pain, repetitive motion injuries, and long-term exposure to dangerous substances. The hours alone. I'm in grad school, and I work 60-70 hours per week. Grind you down. Veterinarians. I am not one, but I worked as tech support for a couple of years in one. And here is the cycle they go through. Young shiny person loves animals, wants to work with them, gets appropriate degrees and a load of student debt. Hit industry and learn that the industry is swamped. All those roles which involve you queuing at cute pets and surgeries in cities for well-paid and caring owners are occupied by the previous generation of vets who have no intention of moving anytime soon. The one place there are vacancies, large animal practices in the rural areas. No emotional attachment to the animals at all. Grumpy farmers as owners who want to spend the least amount of money possible to keep costs low. You'll end up working unpaid overtime or doing favors on the side. When you factor these extra hours in, you realize your salary comes out to less than minimum wage. Work becomes a never-ending badly paid hellscape. And out of work, you're in a rural community. There is no nightlife. There are very few people your age. The people that are there have been there for decades and don't open up to anyone who moved in before the millennium. The internet is dodgy. You are miles from your friends and family and have no time or money to spend going to see them. What you do have lots of access to. Ketamine. So many young vets leave the industry broken, addicted or dead from OD. It's well known in industry but never spoken about of it. Don't do it.